There we go. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day or night or whatever else it is. We are back now with more SCP Resurrection reading. Of note, we have a new mic. Hopefully it sounds better for everyone. I know for sure, has gotten rid of the annoying little whine that was in the background of everything, but yeah. Thank the older Scramble bro for that one. I don't think he's in the Discord, so yeah. In the comments or something. But yeah, we are starting with, let's see what we're doing. Yes, we were starting with the Prologues of the Serpent's Hand, new as of December 12th, 21, so a year ago. I don't know why that's still noted as new. All of these stories are by the Deadly Moose. Yeah, let's get started. You know what she's doing, right? Then you'll be asking a probable god to die? Well, hell. The woman ground out her cigarette. Better than an Earth-shaped hole in the universe. She stood. Let's get to it. The woman known as LS, a famous leader in the Serpent's Hand, known to the Foundation by the name of the Black Queen, read a book by candlelight in the Wanderer's Library, and thought about the end of the world. Here in the East Era Wing, the library was big enough to have wings named about this way, like countries. It was night. Technically, the Wanderer's Library did not have day or night, but day-night cycles were key to maintaining the healthy magical and psychological function of all manner of beings, as a great many books within the library itself could tell you. So, many of the library's wings had day-night cycles, bright during the day, darkness and dimmed lights at night. Variation on the theme in stranger, further out wings, illusions of meteor showers, hovering alien planets, dim gods peering through the chandeliers. Night, here in the East Era Wing, meant swirling star patterns, black and white in a purple and gold sky above the fog, masking the top of the stacks. A vision from another world. The night sky of Saramello. Ellis had once taken a way to Saramello, an awful place. The air like breathing lava and hordes of fey insects trying to eat your succulent eyeballs. But she had always loved that sky. The sky like a Van Gogh painting. She came here, sometimes, to think. Tonight, she considered how her old enemy, the SCP Foundation, the shadowy organization that stole her father from her, was about to end the world. She had had advanced warning. Lucky. One of the birds had whispered in her ear. Another little sister, sending her a message from another world. LS watched the clock of her pocket watch tick down to exactly 24 hours remaining before the end of the world. At 23 hours and 59 seconds, she snapped her book shut and headed for the archives. 2 months ago, Kendra Campbell stared at the I just fucked it up twice. Kendra Campbell stared at the interview subject seated, handcuffed across the table, and hated her. It wasn't just the subject. One Jonah, middle name redacted, Cross. That Campbell hated. She hated working on Task Force Tau 9. She hated being called a bookworm. She hated investigating magic. She hated researching a fucking magical library she had never even seen. And she hated investigating a magical organization almost entirely made up of self-righteous magical pricks. But just for right now, She probably hated Jonah Cross the most. Interview. T356Y SH Cross Campbell, number 35. Interviewer. Dr. Kendra Campbell, MTF Tau 9 researcher, clearance level 2, Gen Special Access Program Tau 9. Subject. Jonah Cross, Serpent's hand operative, blank. Observers, blank, blank, blank. Note. Dr. Campbell shows signs of frustration. Takes an unnecessary long time to begin reading a signed list of questions. Dr. Campbell. Is it true that your first and last name are Jonah Cross? Operative Cross. Yes. Dr. Campbell pauses again, signs of frustration. Dr. Campbell. Is it true that... Operative Cross. This is your 35th interrogation of me, Doctor. You already know what I will say. What makes you think this time will be any different? Dr. Campbell pauses for a lengthy period of time. Dr. Campbell. Interview terminated. Operative Cross does not speak. Dr. Campbell exits interrogation room. I don't understand why we're still interrogating her, Campbell said, slowing to match her pace with the leisurely strides of Dr. Gears. She was in trouble. She knew she was in trouble, but she had found that Gears didn't even notice jokes, let alone the petulance she was feeling right now. She said the same exact things in all 34 previous interviews. What's the point of number 35? Gears took his time answering. Campbell resisted the urge to try and figure out what he was thinking. Gears bore the same facial expression he always did, a cold look of bland calculation. Gears, indeed. That too perfect name. Joke? Code? Fortuitous coincidence? I'm a researcher, not an agent, she continued. I have exactly 0 training in interrogation. The reasoning is above your clearance level, Gears said. The fact that you are a researcher and not an agent is one reason why you're given a script. You are working with items recovered from the breach in which the interview subject was captured. Therefore, you are an appropriate choice for interviewer. I can't even ask her anything useful. You have done admirably in following the letter of the rules, Gears said. As instructed, you did not deviate from the script. It is, as you know, acceptable for an interviewer to end an interview early for reasons of an emotionally distraught state. However, others may not feel convinced that your emotional state merited ending the interview after hearing the answer to only one question. Is there really no one else who can do this? There is only one deemed qualified to interview this subject who is not otherwise engaged, Gears said. Who? Can you get them on it? Dr. Rita Butler is the only other available member of Task Force Tau 9 deemed appropriate by Site Command to interview this subject. Campbell stopped short. That was the other thing about Jonah Cross. Jonah Cross had a sister. A half-sister, but they'd grown up together. A half-sister who was also assigned to Mobile Task Force Tau 9. A quiet, occasionally funny woman. A quiet, occasionally funny woman. Also a doctor. A bit of a nebbish, but in an endearing way. A sister named Rita Butler. But that's her sister, sir, Campbell said. Nevertheless, Doctor. Campbell stared into Gears' pensive, implacable face. This was manipulation, she knew. She didn't think it was coming from Gears, if Gears was capable of being manipulative, if not ordered to by his superiors. But it was still working. You're right, Campbell said. I apologize. Gears nodded once. I've scheduled your next interview for tomorrow morning. Excerpt from interview T356Y SH Campbell, number 36. Interviewer Dr. Kendra Campbell, MTF Tau 9 researcher, clearance level 2. Gen Special Access, Program Tau 9. Subject Jonah Cross, Serpent's Hand operative blank. Observers blank blank blank. Dr. Campbell, is it true that you work for the organization calling themselves the Serpent's Hand? Operative Cross, yes. Dr. Campbell, did you help conduct a raid on Foundation Secure Facility Site 17? Operative Cross, yes. Dr. Campbell, how did the rest of your group escape? Operative Cross, I'm not going to tell you. Dr. Campbell, why did your group breach Site 17? What was your goal? Operative Cross, I'm not going to tell you. Dr. Campbell, was it your goal to remove SCP-239, referred to the Serpent's Hand as the Witch Child, from its containment cell? Operative Cross, I'm not going to tell you. Dr. Campbell, were you involved with prior attempts by the Serpent's Hand to breach SCP-239's security? Operative Cross, I'm not going to tell you. Dr. Campbell, which SCP objects in Foundation custody are you aware of? Operative Cross, I'm not going to tell you. Truncated for length. Campbell finishes reading assigned list of questions. Cross responds as before. Dr. Campbell exits the room, or begins to exit the room. Operative Cross. Doctor? Dr. Campbell stops in place. No, this is the first instance of Operative Cross speaking a phrase that is not in response to a question. Operative Cross. I'll make you a deal. Come see me tomorrow without a script. Come with your own questions, real questions. Not this half-assed mimetic bullshit. Dr. Campbell hesitates before answering. And if I can't? Operative Cross. Then why bother coming back at all? You could interview me 100 times, or 500. You already know every single thing I'll say. Dr. Campbell. Why are you talking to me now? Operative Cross. I feel sorry for you. Dr. Campbell clears throat. I don't know if I can get approval for this. Operative Cross. I wouldn't want you to break any rules. Tell you what. Tell your bosses to ask their friends at the GOC what a GIAS is. GIAS is. Dr. Campbell. Why? Operative Cross. I'm not going to tell you. Say hello to my sister for me. Rita Butler had been keeping to herself since the breach of Site 17 2 months back. Understandable, since she'd just learned that her sister was a hand agent. Rita had been as surprised as everyone else. She'd barely seen Joanna since the incident in which she'd been recruited by the Foundation. I should have been using a female voice. Feels bad. That incident, containment breach by SCP-682, of all things. Now that gave you special cash in water cooler conversation. 682 was one of the big name SCPs. One of the ones that everyone knew about, including all the people who weren't supposed to. Her breach had been an especially spectacular one, with 682 escaping from Emergency Foundation transport and rampaging through New York City like a classic movie monster. He'd even smashed up a small skyscraper. Rita and Joanna had gotten lucky. They ended up in the hospital with only minor injuries, even though they had been right at ground zero when 682 came crashing out of the sky. A night out in the town with 682 was quite the introduction to the paranormal, and so when the Foundation came calling after her, she said yes, happily, and never looked back. Her husband was dead, her biologist colleagues distant. She joked that 682 was just too cool to not want to see one more time. That wasn't true. It had been the most terrifying experience in her life. To think that the world was chock full of things like this, to not know, to be clueless and vulnerable again, sounded like the scariest thing in the world. At least the Foundation had a good handle on the situation. If you were going to die, you'd be able to look death in the eyes. Civilians on the street wouldn't get that chance. But Joanna hadn't been recruited. Maybe the Foundation didn't need more anthropologists with a minor in religion. Or maybe she'd failed whatever behind-the-scenes personality test the Foundation had given her. Who knows? Joanna was mind-wiped, and Rita joined the Foundation. She had thought that was the end of it. It's not like she told Joanna much about her work as a regular biologist anyway. They mostly saw each other on Christmas and Easter. Then this. Joanna Cross, member of the Serpent's Hand. Joanna Cross the terrorist. It was enough to make you hole up in your room forever and never come out. But she was just so tired of being alone. Not just this month, but always. So tonight, when a few members of MTF Town 9 went out for drinks, Rita went with them. Out was just to the Site 17 bar. Site 17 bar. Which was mostly empty right now. But hey, at least they had a bar, unlike most Foundation sites. She braced herself for all the questions that would come about Joanna. But before she got the courage to talk to anyone, Town 9 local sector leader John Peters was stumbling drunk and dominating all conversations. "It's about courage," Peter proclaimed. "About anyone can get skill. Talent is bullshit. Courage is the most important thing." "Man, you're just talking bullshit," the man next to him said. Who was that? Agent Ramesh Patel? God, that shouldn't have been hard to remember. She really needed to get out more. "Courage." Peter dramatically raised his fist in the air, ignoring Patel. "The courage to act. To act when no one else will." "And America?" Patel said. "The America to act. To America when no other America will." "Fuck off, Ramesh," Peter said. "This is real talk time, goddammit. This isn't just goddamn rhetoric." "You need either many more drinks or far fewer." Patel tried to take away Peter's glass. Peters pushed him off. "No, man, no. I'm not just talking bullshit, like, let's get real world here. Let's use a real world example." Peter swayed back and forth, surveying the room, and his eyes settled on Rita. "You, butler." Rita jumped a little on her stool and set down her vodka. "Sir?" "We're off duty, goddammit," Peter said. Butler. My friend, my compadre. Let's say there was a bomb in Site 17, across the site in Section 3. Someone just called and told us. We have no way of knowing when it's gonna go off. Definitely will go off. You with me so far?" "Yeah," Rita said. "There's a bomb." "You got this," Patel said. "I'm getting another drink." "Right," said Peters. "All right, so let's say we got Site 3 evac, but some poor old lady grandmother scientist, maybe someone like Bart from accountant, Okay, some poor old dude grandmother scientist. Look, he's stuck back there because he broke his hip or some shit. Okay, Rita said. Everyone except us is tied up. I don't know, containing skips or eaten by gremlins or something. And we gotta decide if one of us is gonna hop in a truck and go into Section 3 and get this old lady. No one's gonna get ordered to do it, so forget that bit. He took a drink and looked at Rita again. So? I don't get what you mean, Rita said. I'm talking about courage, Peter said. Which of us would have the balls to volunteer to jump in that truck and drive over to Section 3 and go save that old lady? Rita watched him blankly. Would you, Dr. Butler, have the balls to go rescue that old lady, even though you might get blown to kingdom come along with her? It's a key question. A question we all gotta ask ourselves. I don't know about that, Rita said. I can't drive, so I don't think I'd have to confront that question. Peter stared at her. You can't drive? I grew up in New York, she said. Not easy to own a car in a big city. And you never learned? No. Well, shit! Peter's looked like his entire view of the world was shifting. Rita became conscious that everyone else in the bar had shut up and was listening to them. Let's get you some driving lessons, stat. How about it? Rita looked down at her cup. I've never needed to drive, she said. It doesn't really agree with me, and I pretty much live on site now. She felt strange defending something completely different than she'd been expected to defend. Oh, god damn it, Peter said. Look, He looked at his glass. I need another fucking drink. Let's come back to this, Butler. Just 1 second. And then Peters and Patel got into a minor scuffle over Peters trying to get another drink, and by the time the others broke them up, Peters had forgotten the whole damn thing. No one got around to asking Rita about Joanna, or about the status of her loyalties to the Foundation. She finished her drink in silence. 12 hours after the interview, Campbell sat in her research lab examining a pale blue origami flower chain found on Cross when she was captured. Blue lily chains / fairy chains, the label said. Reports from Town 9 field agents confirm that the flower chains were popular among the younger hand members, and that they had a number of anomalous effects. Precisely what anomalous effects the flower chains may have had were blacked out onto the reports. That was for higher clearance levels. But she wanted to know, and Gears didn't mind her testing. In the last few weeks, she'd run every test she could think of on the flower chains twice. They seemed about as anomalous as a suspicious-looking dirt. She began gathering up the papers strewn across her desk. Enough for tonight, she said aloud. Enough of what? A voice asked from behind. Startled, Campbell glanced back to see a too pale man in a lab coat approaching her desk. Hello, Dr. Campbell, the man said. Campbell squinted in the fading light. She hadn't noticed the lighting in her office had gotten so dim, or, hell, at least it was hopefully the lighting and not some horrible, subtle, anomalous side effect of these stupid flower chains. Either way, the man wasn't wearing a name tag. Sorry, do I know? She saw the thing around his neck. The necklace was that ornate amulet, the red jewel gleaming in the center of a starburst. SCP-963-1, Dr. Bright. Director Bright. Campbell felt the papers slip from her hand. She'd seen Dr. Bright in person only once before, during the chaos of the Site-17 breach in which Joanna Cross was captured. She'd seen a breaching SCP, a humanoid with faceless features and scaled black skin morph its hand into a long, sharp sword. A German Zweihander, actually, complete with the tiny speaker hand prongs emerging from the blade a short way up from the hilt. And shoved that Zweihander directly through Bright's chest in one swift motion. When it withdrew the blade, the prongs caught on the necklace around Bright's neck, and the amulet came away with it. And then the faceless horror suddenly became docile, because it had become Bright. Relax, Bright said. I'm here to give you good news. He held out a slim file folder. She took it. I didn't know directors hand-delivered good news, Campbell said. The back of her throat was dry. Bright chuckled. We're changing your orders. Take a look. Campbell flipped open the file folder and read the instructions. They were remarkably short. She cleared her throat. Sorry, did I read this right? I can ask Cross literally anything, as long as I am the only one who comes up with the questions. Don't worry. Bright's tone was open, friendly. If she ends up telling you anything that you're not supposed to hear, we'll just wipe your memory. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. The line slipped out before she could stop it. Bright only smiled and walked away. And that's the end of Prisoners. Next, Family. Oh god. I'm going to take a second to attempt to pronounce this name that starts off this entire thing. Sigiros? Stenfansdottir? Stenfansdottir? Stugiros? Or Sigiros? Sigiros Stenfansdottir. Okay. Present day. Sigiros Stenfansdottir. The girl the Foundation called SCP-239 stirred in her coma-induced slumber. She was fidgeting anxiously in the dreamscapes constructed in her mind, and this anxiety finally had leaked down through the layers of her mind to affect her physical form. Her physical form that was pretending to be asleep, and had been pretending to be asleep for quite a long time now. A very long time, especially for a kid. But, you know, it's what kept the rest of them happy. Well, most of them. But the ones who could see through it didn't need to be made happy. So far, at least. She could wipe them all out with a thought, but that would be horrible, unbearable. She liked them way too much. They were lovely people. When she watched them in her projected astral form, and many of them had been even more lovely before, when she was allowed to be awake. Even Clef, when she had accidentally confused him into trying to kill her. If that's what she had actually done, it was hard to remember, years ago, almost another lifetime for someone as young as her. She loved people. Sigiro's physical form stirred again, and the old-fashioned stabilized telekill alloy that still lined her walls began dissolving a little faster. She needed to calm down, but it was hard. What was coming up was too big. She had had 2 months to think about it, and she still technically had the option to say no, but she wasn't gonna. Of course she wasn't gonna. The consequences were too much for her to even consider saying no. She could project herself in the future and see it. A vast black hole in the world, a hole in reality with her at ground zero. Everyone, everything that she loved, gone in an instant, leaving her to float in the void, truly alone. And it would be all her fault. So she couldn't say no, and she couldn't fail. Sugaro's Stenfast Dottir sat in the landscape of her mind and watched a conjured clock count down 20 hours. 2 hours ago. 2 months ago. We serpents coil in our nest. We are the wanderers gone wandering. We walk the road of still water. We abjure the eyes upon us. We see through the fogged glass. This is jailer ground. They call it Site 17. It is the jailer's largest humanoid containment facility, the largest anomalous prison. More than one god is chained here. We are not the only ones watching. They suspect our presence, but right now we'll do nothing. They do not understand what is coming, nor Joanna Cross's mission. We watch Joanna Cross sit at a white table in a white room. This is an interrogation chamber. Her interrogator enters. Jailer's doctor, Kendra Campbell. Kendra Campbell opens her notebook and shows Joanna Cross its contents. Kendra Campbell. No script. These are my notes. Just notes for what I'm gonna ask you. No script. Joanna Cross nods her head. Kendra Campbell. Oh. Okay. Between you and me, and everyone monitoring us right now, I am shit at this. I don't know why they're so insistent on me interrogating you, and I don't know why they're letting me ask my own questions. And I don't know why you asked me to. And you said I should be asking you questions that aren't from my script. So, okay. We've met 37 times so far. In normal people terms, outside of here, that would make us friends. We're not friends and we both know that, but hey, maybe you can help me out a bit here. What do you want me to ask you? There is a tremble in the air, not visible to Kendra Campbell as she fulfills the terms of the Gias. She remains unaware of this. Joanna Cross. My gods, Doctor, they didn't tell you a single thing, did they? Kendra Campbell. Joanna Cross. That's okay. Let me ask you... Making words. You asked me a question that came from you, both sincerely and of your own volition. Technically, you are being coerced into sitting across from me, but that's okay. You fulfilled the terms of the Gias. Kendra Campbell. What's a Gias? Joanna Cross. It's a type of magical binding. Your bosses knew about it already. Did you figure out why they made you read only from that list of questions? Kendra Campbell. Why, are you going to explain it to me? Joanna Cross. Don't mind if I do. They know I wanted to talk to one of you. They knew I could only give information as a response to direct questions. They've interrogated hen members under circumstances like this before, you know? They wanted to know how much I'd volunteer without you having to give anything yourself. Plus, some other concerns about memetics. Kendra Campbell. I'm not sure I get this. Joanna Cross. They totally don't get it either. It's all very silly. You're all trying to play a game where you don't understand half the rules. Kendra Campbell. Man, if this was all it took to get you to gush like this. Kendra Campbell. You should have said something before. All the times you gave me that same damn line. Sorry, same person. Man, if this is all it took to get you to gush like this, you should have said something before. All the times you gave me that same damn line over and over. Joanna Cross. I didn't have much of a choice, but I did kind of feel like an ass. Kendra Campbell. Because of the GS? Joanna Cross. Oh, that's over now, at least for this interview. Kind of a relief. All that crap made me really want to talk. Makes me wonder if this was all part of your plan. Your boss's plan, anyway. They've already established we don't know anything. Kendra Campbell. So, does that make me the good cop? Joanna Cross. Sure. Don't think I'll tell you everything, though. You are still a jailer. Kendra Campbell. Right. Jailers, right. That's your name for us. Joanna Cross. It's just slang. Don't take it personal. You tend to pick it up if you hang around the hand long enough. But you don't deny it's got a bit of veracity to it, can you? Kendra Campbell. We secure, we contain, we protect, Campbell said. If you want to call it us jailers for it, then I guess I can't stop you. Joanna Cross. What questions did you want to ask me? Kendra Campbell takes a photo from her desk and shows it to Joanna Cross. The photo shows blue lily fairy chains. Kendra Campbell. What are these? Joanna Cross. Blue lily chains. My blue lily chains, in fact. Kendra Campbell. Are they even anomalous? Joanna Cross. What do you think? Kendra Campbell. Fuck if I know. Field agents seem to think they are. But I've hit them with every test in the book, and she waves her hand. They seem pretty normal to me. Joanna Cross. Your field agents know they're anomalous, and they already know what they do. I don't know why they didn't tell you. Kendra Campbell. What do they do? Joanna Cross. The field agents are correct. We hand members use these flower chains for magical good luck, basically. Minor protective wards, or, well, no, you don't. And that's the point, isn't it? Kendra Campbell. What's the point? Joanna Cross. This is a little something a precocious teenager could put together. Something a bunch of teenagers understand, and it's something one of the Foundation's best and brightest can't crack. Why? She leans forward. Knowledge. Kendra Campbell. I could have cracked it if I had a higher clearance level, Campbell said, a little resentfully. We do have people studying thaumatology. We're not stupid, you know? Joanna Cross. I just said that. Knowledge. You're not stupid, just ignorant. So why don't they tell you? Do you think? Kendra Campbell. Maybe they wanted me to figure out some new mundane tests for detecting magic? Maybe they wanted to be sure it was really anomalous? I don't know. I'm not high enough clearance for this. Joanna Cross. Maybe they'll wipe your memory of this conversation. Kendra Campbell. Maybe. Joanna Cross. Well, Knowing what spells are imbued in those chains would help. You could crack exactly which ones in those fairy chains in about 30 minutes if you know how. That's being generous. Just takes some basic countermagic. Kendra Campbell. I'm flattered, but I'm not a reality bender. Pretty sure I can't, do magic, let alone counter magic. Joanna Cross. How do you know? Why don't you try performing some magic and find out? Kendra Campbell. That's definitely above my clearance level. Joanna Cross. That clearance level stuff you have sure is something. Pretty sure what something isn't the scientific knowledge. Kind of ironic for a foundation full of scientists, don't you think? Kendra Campbell. I thought you guys were all about the Harry Potter muggles versus wizards shit, Inborn genetics, special powers, teenagers, fantasy thing. Only the chosen few. Joanna Cross. Maybe a few of our traditionalists, but they're full of shit. Anyone could make these fairy trains in the same way that anyone can do multiplication. You need a pencil or a computer to write out the equations, and to, multiplication tables and numbers. Kendra Campbell. Numbers? Joanna Cross. Yes, that's just it, though, isn't it? You Foundation scientists, you barely know the difference between 1 and 3, and you classify the existence of 2. And here, you're trying to perform calculus, and you damn well know you aren't going to let the rest of the world learn to count while you're at it. You're going to keep them in the dark. Kendra Campbell. We're preserving normalcy. Joanna Cross. And what's that mean? Kendra Campbell. We're guarding against panic in the streets. Joanna Cross. They still panic in the streets. You just wipe their memories of it. And my gods, how often you have to break out amnesics? Sorry. Do you know how many tons of amnestics the Foundation goes through per year? No, you probably don't, do you? I wonder how many Foundation members are killed by anomalies compared to hand members. Is that above your clearance level too? Kendra Campbell. I can't imagine you know that either. You're just baiting me. Joanna Cross. You're the one who wanted answers. That's the real difference here. Knowledge. Kendra Campbell doesn't answer. Joanna Cross. How about it, huh? A bunch of witches, punks, and bookworms know more about the world than an organization of scientists. They're paramilitary muscle. And their paramilitary muscle. It's no wonder you're not very good at the whole secure, contain, protect, you said, right? Kendra Campbell. You sure are full of cheap rhetoric points. Joanna Cross. Then have another. Do you support gay rights? Kendra Campbell. Where the hell is this going? Joanna Cross. It's just a question, just to see where we stand. Kendra Campbell. Yeah, of course I fucking do. My sister is gay. And also, I'm not an asshole. Joanna Cross. So, what would you do if the someone said that gays were a threat to normalcy and had to be locked up for the good of everyone else? Kendra Campbell. Look, lady, in the cell block just down from here, we have a guy who could laser off your face off with his eyes. I'm pretty sure my sister can't laser your face off with her eyes. Joanna Cross. How would you know? Kendra Campbell. Pardon? Joanna Cross. How would you know your gay sister can't laser your face off with her eyes? Kendra Campbell. I don't think you're making a very strong argument. Joanna Cross. No, seriously. Do you have any idea why the man in the cell block just down from here can laser your face off with his eyes? Can you predict the typical occurrence of face lasering in the general population? Kendra Campbell. Could you in my position? Joanna Cross. I don't know, but I'm sure you could better your. I'm sure you'd be better equipped. I have screwed it up about 3 times. But I'm sure you would be better equipped to find out. You getting my point? I sure would be better equipped to get. I read it wrong like 19 times. It feels so bad. And hey, Nukiashi, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Present day. There are some things amusingly mundane about how the library worked, Ellis thought. The library cards were one of them. Yes, they looked impressive, glimmering squares of etched brass for the permanent cards. And yes, the library cards had your name on them, a name that acted as your true name for any magical purposes. But beyond that, they were essentially just library cards like any mundane Earth library card. In days not so long gone by, the library cards were one giant weakness just sitting there in your pocket, since anyone could steal them and use it against you. The true name made you effectively willing for the purposes of any spell cast upon you. A pretty awful situation to find yourself in, and not well balanced against the mere ability to take books outside the library. But whoever ran things behind the scenes at the library had wisened up. They had added new protections to library cards and new privileges, too, for certain users. Privileges like direct access to the archive. The archives was the informal term for the parts of the library where humanoid sapients weren't allowed to go by default, at least not through the front doors. The librarians had never minded those few who'd managed to find ways in, or, well, ways in, with a capital W. But those paths were always very dangerous. As well they should be. The archives were part of the underlying machinery of the library. Part networked prison/zoo for various greater and lesser monstrosities that had invaded the library over the centuries. Part restricted text section, and part passage to library wings for non-humanoid sapient entities to go read their equivalent of books. Some of it was filled with acid, a sizable portion completely underwater. If Cthulhu wanted to check out a book, the archives were where he'd pay his visit. The librarians, classically, hadn't been very enthusiastic about letting humanoid sapients in there, if only because they didn't like losing patrons, but that was, again, before the library card upgrades. Now, if your account was in good standing, which hers was, and if you'd performed certain tasks, which she had, and if you'd done certain favors for the library, which she had, they would conjure a service entranceway just for you. The new issue library cards could literally let you breathe underwater after all, even in acid. They still didn't make the archives safe, but, every little bit counted. Ellis headed towards the local library desk, took off her cap, and nodded to the archivists working there. Librarians could see through the cap of neglect, of course, but they seemed to find it annoying to talk to her when she was under its effects. She walked past the desk and wandered the stacks directly behind it. It took only moments, this time, for a robed docent with a few more arms than the norm to materialize like a walking pillar from the gloom. She knew this docent by sight, from the gold and violet symbol on its shoulder. A symbol unique in color and shape, a distinguishing mark very unusual. Identity was a privilege granted to few librarians. Being a librarian, after all, was a punishment. This Dosset was a trustee. Most Dossets had only one hand, the other replaced by a chain and a lantern, and most Dossets no mouth. This Dosset was the same, but had been granted additions. Most visible was the compact red gold clockwork device attached to the left side of its face that could produce a language understood only by other librarians. And she knew that under its cloak was a red gold chassis attached to its sides and back, from which it could unfold up to 4 mechanical limbs. "I'd like to enter the archives, please." "I'd like to enter the archives," she said. "Please." The Dosset grunted in its own language through the red gold larynx and held out its hand. It examined her library card and then unfolded one of its mechanical arms from under its cloak. This arm terminated in a stone knife, a knife to open ways. The Dosset shuffled off to the side and began cutting a complex pattern into the air. LS left it to finish opening the way. This could take some time, depending on where you're meant to go, especially opening ways for patrons. Those seemed to take significantly longer, probably metaphysical reasons. LS went to find the couple companions waiting for her in another wing of the library. She left her cap off. Now she was just Allison Shao. This small circle of friends did know her real name, and they even knew who her father was, big-name Foundation researcher, Dr. Charles Gears. They did not know she was LS or the Black Queen, though. That would go a touch far. She found Rain, Septima, and Dega in the West Lico wing, Arya wing. These 3 represented part of one of Allison's several inner circles. Zakuro and the others were off the grid somewhere in Lataka. Those who remained: Iris, Rain, Joseph, rainbow-skinned color changer, black human woman, and a fragment of another universe's one deity, a hedge mage of fair usefulness. Septima, Varen, the High Enchantress, an Anahuman of unknown origin, and a high opinion of her reality-altering skills that was not entirely unwarranted. Despite the entirely self-bestowed title inspired by her equivalently self-involved brother. Degati, a reptile woman who insisted on referring to herself as lizard folk after playing too much Dungeons & Dragons, but still a competent fighter. Or, capital F fighter, probably. They were arguing about SCP-239. "The witch child is not a witch child," Septima was saying, waving that oversized staff of hers around dangerously. "The witch child is the woman with stars in her eyes. She who made the people. She who made the land and the corn and squash." "She is from freaking Iceland," Rain said irritably. "She is as white can get." "Only the cultural imperialism of the Europeans could turn her white." Septima nearly knocked Dega about the head with another wave of her staff. Dega jumped out of the way, flicking her tail for balance. "A disgrace and a lie. Also, truth, but not only truth for now. She is not what we see with our eyes." "I thought the star-eyed child was the woman with stars in her eyes," Dega said. "The one they call SCP-134. "Don't be so literal." Septima turned to face Dega and noticed Allison watching. "How long have you been standing there?" she demanded. Only a couple hours," Allison said. "I see you're all ready to go." "Damn right, we're ready to go," Rain said. They headed for the way into the archives. 16 hours left to go. 2 months ago. Joanna Cross. Do you believe in God? Kendra Campbell. What? Joanna Cross. You know, God, Yahweh, big man in the sky, fate personified, general, ultimate, distant father figure, or hey, any of the other variations. I'm not here to be picky. Kendra Campbell. I think that's a bit too much of a personal question. Joanna Cross. Most of you don't believe in God, I'm sure. Scientists are mostly atheists. Just speaking statistically, I think the foundation's a bit different, though. You still don't believe in, like, God, but God has many different faces. There's another personal question for you. Do you believe there's a plan? Kendra Campbell. What kind of plan? Joanna Cross. A plan, a right and true way that things should be. Kendra Campbell. I'm not sure what you mean. Joanna Cross. It goes back to the garden, Doctor. Adam and Eve standing naked in the dark, innocence, knowing nothing, until the serpent came along. Kendra Campbell. Yeah, I was raised religious. I seem to recall the serpent was a villain. Joanna Cross. Why, though? Kendra Campbell. Eating the fruit of good and evil, or the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Going against what God said, all that crap. Joanna Cross. Knowledge of good and evil? Why is that supposed to a bad thing? Or why is that supposed a bad thing? Kendra Campbell. You tell me. Joanna Cross. Eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil was gaining the power to know, to discern right and wrong, the power to understand how the world works, which humans can't understand. Eating the fruit was a sin because humans aren't meant to discern themselves from how the world works, because they aren't meant to change things. Only God's meant to do that. People trying to change things, or trying to see things, or trying to see what should be right and wrong, that's just sin. Deviation from the perfect plan, right? Kendra Campbell. Right, I guess. I wasn't the best student in Sunday school. Joanna Cross. Oh, you should know the story better, if only because you want to understand your enemy, of course. Kendra Campbell. Fine. Why do you identify with the bad guy? Joanna Cross. Because the serpent's only the bad guy if there really is a perfect plan. If there really is a perfect, correct way things should be. Kendra Campbell. Oh, okay. Joanna Cross. But there is no plan. If there's no correct way things should be, and if what you think is the plan is wrong, then what next? Kendra Campbell. Okay, what's your point? Joanna Cross. The Foundation does believe in God. Your God is normalcy. Normalcy, the perfect, arbitrary plan from which there can be no deviation. Trying to change normalcy is the worst sin of all. The cardinal sin against which your organization stands with all its might. A stalwart bulwark against change. Kendra Campbell. I think it's plausible that you might be overthinking this philosophy stuff. Joanna Cross. I think we're off the point. Feel free to redirect us. I'm being pretty cooperative, aren't I? Kendra Campbell. That's one way of putting it. Okay, look. I do have a question about your sister. Joanna Cross's demeanor changes. She's startled. Joanna Cross. My sister, Kendra Campbell. Did you come here to recruit her, kidnap her, hurt her, anything like that? Joanna Cross. Hurt her? Gods. And you complain about personal questions. Kendra Campbell. I mean, bit of an odd coincidence, being that she's stationed here on MTF Tau 9 and all. I don't believe for a second that you didn't know. She's my friend. You can't blame me for asking. Joanna Cross. I knew she was here. Kendra Campbell. So did you come here to recruit her? Joanna Cross. I love my sister, but I didn't come here to recruit her. Kendra Campbell. I find it really hard to believe that this was a coincidence. Joanna Cross. It was. This is how the Foundation works. They think you have a vulnerability and they try to scrape it raw to see if it's scabbed. If it doesn't, you're written off. They'd be willing to lose my sister in a heartbeat. That's why she was assigned to your bookworms. A honeypot to attract flies, to attract me. Kendra Campbell. So, Joanna Cross. I'm not here because of my sister. She's here because of me. Kendra Campbell. But that's not why you came here. Joanna Cross. No. Kendra Campbell. Then why did you come here? Joanna Cross. What do you think? Kendra Campbell. You're asking me? Joanna Cross. I just did, didn't I? Kendra Campbell. I got to admit, this is one of the parts where I agree with that shitty list of questions. I think you came here for SCP-239. Joanna Cross. That's an interesting little theory. Kendra Campbell. So you're not gonna tell me. Joanna Cross. Gotta preserve a little bit of mystery, right? Back at her lab station hours later, Campbell examined the transcript of the interview logs. Cross had actually given quite a bit of information, really. Well, maybe. Quite a bit of the information compared to all the other interviews, at least. For whatever reason, no one had objected to the content of the interview, or approached her with an amnesic pill. Amnestic pill. Or at least not that she could remember. Still, she knew far more than she had expected to know. Why, though? What was in this for Cross? What was her game? Either way, she was approved for another interview tomorrow morning. No problem at all. So, Campbell heard footsteps and turned. Suddenly, afraid of once again seeing Dr. Bright, she was relieved for a moment to see Rita Butler. And she stopped being relieved. Hi, Rita said cautiously. Kendra, I knew I shouldn't be asking, but I know you know. Interviewed your sister, Campbell said. Yeah, Rita fidgeted. I know I technically have the clearance, but normally I wouldn't ask because, conflict of interest. It's cool, Campbell said. Don't worry, I don't mind. Rita gave a awkward half smile. Did she say anything about me? For some reason, Campbell froze up for a second in hesitation, remembering how Cross had gotten when that subject came up. Yeah. Rita stood there, waiting expectantly with a concerned look on her face. She said she loves you, Campbell said, and other stuff. She talked about philosophy, good and evil crap. I never heard her talk so much because, well, the other interviews she just kept repeating the same damn line. Campbell cleared her throat. Rita, I'm sorry. I can't imagine how this must feel for you. Is she... Rita swallowed. God damn, that woman wore her emotions on her sleeve. Did she say, She paused for a moment. I guess I'm asking if the rumors are true. If she came here to recruit me. No, Campbell said. Shit. What was even the right answer in this situation? She said she loves you, but she didn't come here to recruit you. Rita waited. I think she's telling the truth. She seemed to think that you were... Campbell wondered if she was going too far, sharing too much. That you were assigned to bookworms, to MTF Town 9 because Site Command knew she was your sister. Campbell hesitated. Rita just stood there, waiting. Maybe Site Command wanted you to deal with her if worst came to worst. Maybe they thought you would know, or you would deserve to know if anything had happened. Christ, this was definitely the wrong thing to say. It was unfair. It really was. Rita had been assigned to this damn team. Campbell felt ashamed of the self-pity she'd felt yesterday. No amount of repetitive interviews could measure up to your own sister being held in prison. Or in the prison you helped run. Fuck, Site Command. The hell were they thinking? Would it really have been so hard to transfer Rita into the goddamn Arctic Circle or something? A place where she'd never have to think about her wayward sister ever again. But Rita was just nodding. What do you think is gonna happen to her? Rita said. She's not to be harmed in any way. Clear orders, Campbell said, probably too eagerly. They're afraid she got some kind of anomalous protection. They'll probably just keep her in a humanoid containment cell. Figure out what to do from there. Not too bad, right? Yeah, Rita said. I guess not. I'm going to take a quick second to pause to respond to something. Alright, sorry about that. Alone again, Campbell returned to taking down information. She wrote and deleted several purely speculative paragraphs on the blue lily chains, those fucking flowers, goddamn. She helped the Foundation higher-ups weren't actually logging all her keystrokes, or at least not reading through those logs too obsessively. For all that she hadn't given much credence to Cross's overcooked points on science and research and clearance levels, it was true that she was kind of worried about how her superiors would react to too much interest in reality bending. Or, hell, maybe she was overthinking this now too. She was a member of MTF Town 9, after all. The bookworms were supposed to be interested in magic, even if they weren't supposed to do magic, or, know anything useful about it at all, just in case you might get corrupted. Her computer screen seemed to flicker and swim for a moment, just dissolved into shapes and colors before resolving back into a computer screen like any other. A computer screen like it always had been. Great, she thought. I'm gonna have to catalog this too. Or maybe not. Maybe it was nothing. She briefly envisioned being taken off all her projects due to unacceptable anomaly exposure and left doing terrible interviews with captured hand agents forever. Always either repeating the same line or babbling on about philosophy forever. She glanced down on the blue lily flower chains. You'd better not be doing anything funny to me, she said. Just in case, she packed them away, back in the secure, ceramic-lined containment box they had arrived at her desk in. She found herself wondering what was inside, underneath the ceramic lining. Campbell's follow-up interview went in a fairly unproductive direction for most of its length. Ross rephrased a few of her philosophical points and gave her disappointingly little information. Campbell was indeed shit at interviews, she thought. Even though Cross was the one in handcuffs, she was railroading Campbell like a seasoned pro. Joanna Cross. Do you know why we're going through this song and dance at all? Kendra Campbell. What? Joanna Cross. Surely you've been wondering why the Foundation sent an interrogator to torture me. Kendra Campbell. Because torture doesn't work. Subject just tells you whatever they think you want to hear. You have no way of knowing if the information is true or not until it's too late. Sometimes you never know at all. Jonah Cross. Oh, please. The Foundation isn't going to give up a thing like torture merely because it doesn't work. They'd torture me anyway, if they could, merely because it's tradition. It's how things go, and that's reason enough. It's part of the plan. Kendra Campbell. And yet, they're not torturing you. Joanna Cross. I have protections. I don't mind telling you that they are protections that are easy to unravel. Kendra Campbell. Why would you tell me that? Joanna Cross. Because you'll never figure out how to unravel them. Not you or the rest of your team. Your bosses are too scared to let you to delve too deep into anomalous methods. So I sit here, forever safe, only in the SCP Foundation. Kendra Campbell. We use anomalous methods when we have to. Joanna Cross. And yet we're here. Kendra Campbell. Kind of tempting fate, don't you think? You almost sound like you want some good old-fashioned torture. Joanna Cross. Jack Bright said something similar. Kendra Campbell didn't answer. Joanna Cross. Dr. Bright was in here to talk to me before you. He mentioned anomalous methods as well. Technically, he is best suited among you to back that up. Our conversation did not go too well. Kendra Campbell. I can't imagine. Joanna Cross. Man, Jack Bright, though. I knew about him before coming here, you know? One of the few exceptions to your no anomalous, no, not an ever rule. An SCP item who gets to be considered a person. And a staff member. Heavens forfend. Kendra Campbell. He's a good scientist. We don't imprison our members just because they had anomalous exposure, not unless we had to. I would have thought you'd approve. Joanna Cross. I do. I've seen his file, of course. They used to keep Bright on a short leash, but it got longer and longer as time went by, right? Now he's a personal director, if I remember correctly. Or personnel director, if I remember correctly. Kendra Campbell. Right? Joanna Cross. Let me tell you a secret about Jack Bright. Do you know why they keep him around? Why they trust him so much? Kendra Campbell. I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to know that. Joanna Cross. Then they'll wipe your memory of this conversation anyway. She smiles. Do you know about 590? Kendra Campbell. SCP 590. That healer kid touches you and you get healed? Fucked up in the head? Joanna Cross. Touches you and he receives all your ailments. Pain, wounds, broken bones, cancer, mental illness. Did the file you had clearance for happen to mention Bright's involvement in 590? Kendra Campbell. He used 590 to heal several cases of mental retardation for, I don't know, people. Made 590 tractable, easier to contain. Joanna Cross. 590 is Bright's brother. Kendra Campbell. What? She pauses. What, so like a little Bright kid too? Joanna Cross. Jack Bright's little brother. They scrubbed the name pretty well, but definitely Bright's little brother. Kendra Campbell. He's Jesus. Joanna Cross. Bright's been around longer than most of you already. He doesn't age or die. When when you're rotting in your grave, be it tomorrow or after dying at the ripe old age of 100, Bright will still be here. Quietly doing this, having proven his loyalty on the skin and bones of his own little brother. Kendra Campbell. What's your point? Joanna Cross. Isn't it obvious? Kendra Campbell. Why are you telling me all this? Why all this philosophy crap? All these existential questions? You know I'm not gonna listen. Are you trying to deflate me with word food? Seduce me to the dark side? What? Joanna Cross. I don't know. Is it working? Kendra Campbell gives her a skeptical look. Joanna Cross. I'm just kidding. Kendra Campbell. What then? Why are we having this conversation? Joanna Cross. I am trying to convince you, yes. But you'll probably be mind wiped after this, anyway. It's not just you. I'm trying to convince all your colleagues and superiors who will read this. The security personnel who will obsessively vet it before deciding which clearance level can read it and what means a redaction into oblivion. I'm even trying to convince your site command. Kendra Campbell. Why? Aren't we the enemy? Joanna Cross. I think you're redeemable. Not just you, this whole site. My sister, the whole Foundation, even Dr. Bright. I don't think you've gone too far enough into the dark that you can't find your way out again. Kendra Campbell doesn't answer. Joanna Cross. Am I wrong? It was the last exchange in particular, especially, irrationally. Those last 3 words that echoed in Campbell's mind long afterward. As it turned out, Cross was wrong about at least one thing. For whatever reason, Campbell was not mind-wiped. Not to blank out Cross's last desperate pitch, not to remove the knowledge of Bright's little brother. That suffering little boy locked up in a cell somewhere, in this very site. Bright came to receive a report and said nothing. No one mentioned anything. There was, however, no follow-up interview. No 39th interview with Joanna Cross. They moved her cell to somewhere. She was still at Site 17, but Site 17 was an enormously big place. A place that Campbell had only seen about 2% of in the 5 years of living on location. She got rid of the blue lily chains and stopped suffering audiovisual hallucinations. She added that to the report. Finally, something solidly anomalous. And then something else, and nothing else happened for a while. 1 month later, Campbell returned to her computer to see a message on it, typed in Notepad and left open for her to read. If you change your mind, don't forget about me. The note was unsigned. Campbell did not report it. She was going to, but somehow she never did. The 2nd month passed without incident. Present day. Sigros Stenfans Dottir lay awake in bed with her eyes closed, listening. She could hear it now, as the hours ticked down, that indefinable humming. That humming that sounded like it was coming from somewhere deep inside her soul, and all around at once. A wordless, tuneless, eternal song. 12 hours left to go. 12 hours to the end. And she listened. She found that she could make out one word, just a single word in the endless song. Never, 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 never. And that is the end of family. Already at the hour mark, but I got the new mic. Why not celebrate by finishing all of the stories? If my voice gives out after Showtime, we'll come back to Sisters later, but I'm fairly sure I can get it all done tonight. Alright. Showtime. Present day. 2 months passed since the strange final interview with Joanna Cross. The day began on which the Foundation's mistake would end the world. But Kendra Campbell did not know that. As the day went, Kendra Campbell became more and more sure that she could hear some kind of humming. No one else could hear it. Never a good sign. She decided that she would call in to the site therapists on Monday. She hoped maybe Glass was around again. He was always cool. The clock ticked down. 30 minutes before the end of the world. Campbell returned to her desk after a late lunch break and found that she had a message waiting for her. Doctor, I am afraid I have not been completely forthcoming with you. Footsteps behind her. Campbell turned around and stared down the barrel of a gun. Joanna Cross approached Campbell's desk. In one hand, she held a gun. In the other hand, she held a gigantic potted flower by the stem. "Hello, Dr. Campbell," she said. "Long time no see." After several hours of climbing stairs, swimming through multicolored oceans, and climbing through the machinery underneath the library, Allison Chow carefully stepped through a tangle of roots and into a thin, long wedge of granite protruding into thin air. Rain, Septima, and Dega followed. 30 seconds left to go, Allison thought. And they stood in front of a vast sky. Sky was a bit of a wrong word for it, but no better one came to mind. It was a nice, clear blue, and possessed a number of pleasant-looking clouds. Up above, at the top of the sky, a vast network of roots weaved itself into the distance. Amorphous floating light sources moved slowly through the root-hung chandeliers, the kind found all over the library. The sky below seemed endless. Allison wasn't even sure there was a ground down there. True, this space was technically all contained on the inside of the library, but Dega swished her tail. "It's this a bad time to mention I'm afraid of heights?" "I've got some rocks I could throw down there," Ren said, "so we can hear when they hit the bottom." Septima collapsed to her knees and planted her ear firmly against the rocks and started whispering. "Geez," Ren said. "Just a bad joke." "I require silence," Septima said. "I am communicating with the rock." "Don't," Allison said. "You'll need all your power for where we're about to go." Septima shot her a glare. "This takes no power. I'm merely communicating. If anything, this would help regain my power." She huffed a little bit like an angry cat. "Please. I need quiet, respectful silence," she resumed murmuring. They waited several long minutes in silence. Presently, a shape soared towards them, resolving into a figure of a humanoid with 4 vast wings. "Good," Allison said. He's here." Septima leaped to her feet. "I've finished communicating with the rock," she said. It's a very, very, very long way down." "Great to know," Rain murmured. "Great to know." The 4-winged figure drew close and dropped down, folded his wings as he landed, a smooth transitioning into a bow. Allison and her companions bowed in return. "Greetings," the humanoid said. His face was covered in a thin coating of down, and his hair seemed to be entirely feathers. Otherwise, he looked relatively human. "I am Axis. I believe we have not time for true introductions, for we must make haste." He gestured to Allison. "Do you have my payment?" "I do," Allison said. She reached into her pocket and drew out a simple silver key and pressed it into the avian man's hand. Ataxis examined the key from several different directions, gave it an experimental lick, and swallowed it whole. An immensely pleased expression crossed his face. "Excellent," he proclaimed. "Truly satisfying, truly. You are a woman who makes good on her bargains, and so, without further ado, Ataxis pivoted on one foot, facing toward the sky, opening all four wings at once, and his left hand upward. And swept his left hand upward. One instant, there was nothing but sky at the edge of the granite protrusion, and the next, that space was occupied by a massive crystalline door. Allison reached out and touched it, closed her eyes and concentrated for a moment. Then she smiled. "This will do nicely," she said to Ataxis. "Most excellent," Ataxis said. "You will understand if I would like to be far away before you open this door, and also remember to shut it after you." When Ataxis had flown away into the distance, Allison finally sighed in relief. "Okay," Ren said. "It's a door. Where to?" The door began to open. First, there was only diffused light in the hallway. Then the mist resolved itself into a plain, metallic gray color. "This," Allison said, "is a way directly into Site 17. An indefinable hum began to fill the air as Allison and her companion stepped through the door. For a long moment, Kendra Campbell stared down the barrel of Jonah Cross's gun. Then Cross lowered the gun. "I will shoot you if I have to," Cross said, "but I really, really don't want to." "Why?" Cross chuckled. "Call it affection." Campbell eyed the plant. What the hell is that thing? The plant was hard to look at. Green with a pink and red blossom, but with a sheen that made it look like the colors were swimming. And the way it was shaped, the color of the green was off. The stem was too thick, too smooth. It seemed like a thing shaped into the idea of a plant rather than a living organism. "It's focus," Cross said. "When you asked me 2 months ago if I was here to break out the witch child, the answer is yes, but not the whole answer." "All right," Campbell said. "What's the whole answer?" Cross looked at the watch strapped to her wrist. Funny, Campbell thought. I haven't seen anyone wearing a wristwatch in a while. "The world ends in 26 minutes, Cross said. "What?" Campbell said. 25 minutes now, Cross said. "Walk with me, walk ahead of me. I'm gonna need your keycard to open doors." "Where are we going?" "To the Site 17 bar." "You want to get a drink?" "What better time than right before the end of the world?" No, there's an actual reason. Let's get moving. We're running out of time, you know. Stigeros Stenfans Dottir was still listening. Only 25 minutes left to go. The song was changing, building. More words and not words were added to the chorus. A curious pain from everywhere, a full-body headache. She could barely hold still. Then she saw the light opening in her mind's eye, down the hallway, a familiar form stepping through with 3 companions. She was still pulling out the IV tubes when the woman opened the door. But she remembered her manners. "Hello," she said. "My name is Sigiros. It's nice to meet you." "Likewise," Allison said. "Believe me, as I get ritualistic here for a moment, I, Allison Chow, also known as LS, also known as the Black Queen, come here to meet you on behalf of the inhabitants of this planet, on behalf of the Serpent's Hand, and on behalf of myself. I have come to ask a bargain of you." 15 minutes left to go. There were new words in the song now, new words that Sigiros could recognize. "Never, never, never, never yesterday, and forever, forever, and ever, and ever, and ever. Never, 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 never." Cross led Campbell through the labyrinth of hallways that was Site 17. You're obviously not supposed to be here, Campbell said. You're gonna get jumped first time we pass security. I gave myself a bit of glamour, Cross said, but I don't really think it'll be a problem. I don't think many people are going to be paying us much attention. The sounds of shouts came from down the corridor. Campbell listened to the security security codes echoing through the speaker. Shit, she said. Containment breach, SCP-239. Not a moment too soon, Cross said. You're ending the world? Said Campbell. What? A note of surprise in... What? A note of surprise in Cross's voice. Really? After all that talk, this is what it comes down to. You're releasing a reality bender and ending the world. To think, I almost fell for all that shit you said. Cross sighed. We're not ending the world, we're saving it. All right. Cross paused, moved ahead of Campbell, cautiously peered around the corner, and continued. Remember that breach, the one where your friends captured me? We didn't cause that breach, we came here to stop that breach. You came here to stop a containment breach? We knew about it in advance, Cross said. A hole in reality erasing an entire planet. Yeah, that's gonna leave a mark. In both the future and past, fortunately for us. They arrived in front of the Site 17 bar. A dozen members of an MTF detached squad raced past them, not one batting an eyelash. I see the glamour's working pretty well, Cross said. It's because of Rita. Even though she doesn't know it, family members are mystically connected. The glamour makes it seem like I fit in here because my sister fits in here. So, Campbell started to say. In the next instant, she saw a massive explosion bloom above one of the buildings. In the next second, she saw a massive explosion balloon above one of the holding facilities a block away. Not natural. A flash of blackness, not light. The instant after, she was knocked off her feet by the shockwave. Cross had been knocked over too. She sat up, still clutching her giant potted plant. She stared at the black flames and swore loudly. Campbell hurled herself up off the ground, ran her keycard through the slot, and stumbled through the door. The humming was everywhere now. Rita Butler had been drinking, sitting alone in the Site 17 rec room. The rules were lax here. It was easy to sneak in the vodka in clear plastic bottles. There were always people here in the rec room, but they were people doing their own thing, playing ping pong, punching hanging bags, lifting weights. People who wouldn't talk to her. It was, in its own way, a perfectly acceptable existence. When the klaxons went off, she hadn't thought to head for the doors fast enough, and her way was blocked by a milling crowd of people by the time she had. Then, a burst of green light blew the doors right open. In came four people which didn't belong. A lizard person, a woman in flamboyant outfit waving a staff, and another woman with color-shifting skin. The woman who led them was dressed in street clothing, carried a strange-looking shotgun and a giant flower, and looked deadly serious. Get out of here if you don't want to die, the leader said. To punctuate that, she raised the shotgun in the air and fired a blast of green light at the ceiling. The crowd scattered away. The leader pointed her minions in various directions. They scattered along with the crowd, but she herself strode forward, eyes searching the crowd. Landing on Rita. Shit! She froze in place. Deer in the headlights reaction. You need to run. But the leader was upon her before she knew it, seizing her arm, leaning in, hissing in her ear. Your sister is here Trying to save the world. Help her for God's sake. She's in the cafeteria. Go, now. And then she was striding away, leaving Rita shaken and alone in the emptying building. After a minute, Rita lurched towards the door. She grabbed an abandoned sidearm on her way out. Sigaros Stefans Dottir heard the words of the song, reach the fevered pitch she'd been waiting for, that she'd been dreading. They were running through the hallways, Allison just ahead of her, and the others close behind. But they weren't going to make it to the surface in time. Somewhere up above, she could hear the chittering of innumerable wings. She could teleport herself there, but she could sense reality shaping up there on the surface, and you never want to be sloppy with another reality shaper. They could smack you right back where you'd come from, she'd heard. Sigaros looked up at the ceiling. Her feet lifted from the floor. She rose into the air. Never, 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 never. The nice thing about Site 17 Bar was that one of the main rooms had a wall of surveillance camera feeds. The Foundation knew its personnel, at least to that extent. If a containment breach happened in the evening, when a lot of people were mostly off-duty drinking, it was to everyone's advantage to get as many people aware of the situation as well, even if some of them were drunk. People joked that the containment breaches were to the Foundation what sports were to everyone else. Right now, they were showing the breaching SCP-239. 239 was crossing camera feeds at a rapid rate, heading for the surface of the site via the most direct route possible. She simply I'm going to drink some water. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's try that again. 239 was crossing camera feeds at a rapid rate, heading for the surface of the site via the most direct route possible. She simply unfolded the chambers and hallways out of her way, and let them settle back into place after her. It was both impressive and oddly tidy. Campbell had never seen a reality bender in action before, but the thought rose in her mind. She knows how to clean up after herself. Behind her, Cross was doing something with her potted plant, taking it out of the pot, holding it over the center of the floor with one hand, making odd shapes in the air with her other hand. I hope to God you're telling them the truth about trying to save the world, Campbell. That's right. I hope to God you're telling the truth about trying to save the world, Campbell said. Shit, Cross said. It's not taking. Campbell was transfixed to the cameras. She saw something familiar. A creature that she'd last seen wearing SCP-963, a humanoid with a featureless face and scaled black skin. Sigaros burst through to the surface, letting her feet touch down on concrete, closing up the path she had taken behind her. It felt a little startling, breathing the surface air again. Physically, not just in dream form. She hadn't expected there to be that much of a difference. In fact, it felt very odd to be breathing like this, she realized. She needed to go back to her room. She needed just a little bit more sleep. She startled awake as she nearly fell over. The adrenaline rush countered the soporific effect, and she realized the presence was something behind her. She turned around to see a blank, scaled face, watching at her through invisible myriad eyes. Eyes within eyes within eyes. No mouth but a voice. That eternal murmur. Never, 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 never. The murmur had a feeling soaked through it. The urge to go to sleep and never wake up again. Not noticeable until you got close, until it was almost too late. My name is Sigaros, she told the thing. Who are you? In response, it reached out invisibly with its mind and touched her, seeking probing. Sigaros was startled enough by this that she didn't immediately stop it. Then she probed back. The creature seemed to open up, to unfold in response to her probe. It kept opening, further and further, eternally branching tendrils reaching out, far away into forever. "You're away," Sigaros said aloud. 5 minutes until the end of the world. It was almost comical the way Cross was looking at her, at her weird potted plant in obvious frustration. "All right," Cross said. "Breathe. Start again." She began moving her hands again in a new pattern. Campbell watched the screen. "What is that thing?" "You were there when I was captured," Cross said. "You saw Dr. Bright killed and resurrected." "Yeah." Campbell fell back, remembering the necklace curling around the sword, but... "Just keep asking me questions," Cross said. "I'm not joking. I get anxiety. Talking helps my anxiety." "No shit," Campbell said. "Okay, I saw 963 Bright take over that thing. I thought that killed it." Cross laughed a little bit. "Yeah, that thing is the personification of a damaged way, forced into humanoid form to heal itself." "A way? A magical passageway?" "At least you bookworms know that." Cross moved her fingers a little faster, making shapes in the air. "This transformation almost never happens, especially not like this. We all had the bad luck that your Foundation found it first, wandering the wilderness alone, blundering across highways, scaring farmers." "Why didn't 963 kill it?" "Because it's not possible to kill a way. You can damage it, you can make it vulnerable, and there are things that live in ways, things that prey on the vulnerable. Some of them are things that never did exist and never will exist and don't exist, but desperately, desperately want to. And they're dangerous. More dangerous than you can imagine," Cross grimaced, pushed in her invisible pattern weaving, shook out one of her hands and continued. "They are the Neverwhere. You can understand them as parasites of the soul." "Oh." "They are deeply unhappy and deeply hungry, and this one landed the most powerful host it could imagine. This one is trying to become a way, to take over its host." "Okay." "It's only got that foothold because of the damage that soul-searing medallion did. 963. And then it only worked because the way was in this form. So its soul was becoming something a Neverwhere can understand." Cross laughed. "Ha! It's as if reality is conspiring against us." "Why is that a problem?" "Because it won't work. It can't become the way. And the way it is, it can only stay stable for so long. Soon, it's going to go nuclear." "What happens then?" Cross smiled grimly. "A hole in the universe where Earth used to be." Campbell took it in. "And how do we fix this?" "The witch child," Cross said. "She has to kill it." "What is the plant for?" "It's a focus." Cross adjusted the angle of the plant's stem. "Surgo's young, inexperienced, and the only person capable on this planet who can help. And the only person currently on this planet who can help. These things are designed to help her. Okay? We've got to metaphysically plant them in magically key areas of Site 17. In this case, the bar is a locus of human energy. But it's such drunken energy that I'm having trouble." Cross stopped talking. Campbell had been watching 239 and the faceless humanoid standing stock still in front of each other in an apparent staring contest. She turned to look to see what was going on. She saw Rita Butler standing in the doorway and aiming a gun at Jonah Cross's head. That is the end of Showtime. On to Sisters. Present day. Sigaros faced off against the faceless entity in front of her with growing curiosity. She sent out her thoughts again and probed further this time, feeling her mind mesh with the mind of the thing in front of her. If it could be called a mind, it was like staring into an internal maze of strings stretched out on some vast cosmic framework set in too many dimensions at once. There was something else there. Her mind touched something that wasn't there, and the backlash sent her flying physically backwards. She landed on her back, gazing up at the open sky, too stunned to move. The voiceless voice and songless song filled her head again. Never, 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 never. Sigaros telekinetically lifted herself into the air. It was a really very strange way operating this body, this physical shell made of bones and muscles and tendons. No, she couldn't get distracted, not now. She focused on the blank-faced, many-faced thing in front of her, which was sort of easy to do, because it was sprouting masses of tentacles, and with her spirit sight, she could see it spreading a countless number of wings. What is my name? What is my name? What is my name? What is my name? The world stopped existing for a moment, sloppy. Sigaros brought it back. You can't just soft delete things, Sigaros said. They're super easy to bring back. They come back on their own after a minute anyway, and no one notices. The thing did not answer in words. It opened its mouth without opening its mouth, and a river poured out. No, a tsunami. A tsunami of black water imbued with wanton longings forever. Sigaros turned the water into a swarm of birds and butterflies, blanketing Site-17 with their wings. The thing flew into the air and thrust its tentacles into the buildings surrounding them. The buildings turned into a massive wave of spiders that came crashing down on them. Sigaros, who always liked bugs, let the wave come. That was a mistake. The spiders weren't just spiders, they were the idea of spiders. The fears and genetic arachnophobia of everything that had ever walked this corrupted way. All concepts of each are in each of every one of the billions of spiders making up the wave. Sigaros screamed as the mass swallowed her up. Allison was planting her focus flower in the middle of Site-17's personnel offices when a mental attack bowled her over. The entity was coming at her through Sigaros' mind. The entity was coming at her through Sigaros. In her mind's eye, she could see a tendril lashing out, piggybacking from Sigaros' mind straight into hers. She was only a couple of gestures away from success. Gods be damned if she could just... Never, never, never. Allison rolled on the floor, clutching her head as if that would help. What is my name? What is my name? Or, what is my name? What is your name? What is my name? What is your name? She forced herself to hold still, concentrate. Allison Chow, Black Queen, Little Sister, Lost Sinner, Last Saint, Lowly Serpent, Loki Scar Lip, Least Signatory. Little sister, little sister, little sister. Her eyes rolled back up in her head. She struggled to hold on to her own existence. Rita. Rita was not in a very good state. She wasn't crying, but she was all but. The gun shook in her hand, but not enough that it wavered from being aimed at her sister's head. You wouldn't believe me if they told... You wouldn't believe it when they told me, Cross said. My sister, working for the Foundation. No, shut up. Wrong thing to say, Campbell thought, but of course thinking at Cross that she should stop talking was even less effective than telling Cross to stop talking. My sister, working for the Serpent's hand, Rita shouted back. She was tearing up. Campbell didn't know how to interpret this. My sister, the terrorist. My sister, the woman trying to destroy the world. I'm not trying to destroy the world, Cross said. I'm trying to save it, goddammit. Put that fucking thing down. Cross lowered the plant to the ground. Rita. Don't you say my name! I think she's telling the truth, Rita, Campbell said hesitantly. And you, Rita said, you've been working with her this whole time. I trusted you, Kendra. I didn't know a thing about this until today. I don't believe you. You saw the logs, Campbell said. I know you did. I saw your requisition request on them. You know exactly what I knew until today. Wrong voice. You saw the logs, Campbell said. I know you did. I saw your requisition request on them. You know exactly what I knew until today. Well, except for the single unreported message. But Campbell wasn't about to split hairs with an angry woman holding a gun. There are a lot of people. Allow me to take a second to split up which voice I should be doing for what. Just 1 second. Okay. You saw the logs, Campbell said. I know you did. I saw your requisition request on them. You knew exactly what I knew until today. Well, except for the single unreported message, but Campbell wasn't about to split hairs with the angry woman holding a gun. You read my logs? The logs of my interview with Dr. Campbell? Cross asked. I didn't think you would. Rita stayed silent. Everything I said in there was true. Everything. Be quiet. Be quiet, Rita said. Just for the love of God, shut up! Sigaros writhed in fear for a long time at the bottom of the sea of spiders. Then something in the back of her mind said, really now. The solution is obvious, actually. That small, detached part of her mind said, the way to not be afraid of spiders is to be a spider yourself. So, Sigaros became a spider. She didn't just become any spider. She became the queen of all spiders. The other spiders around her bowed their heads in awe. Bowed their spider heads in awe. She was about to command them to become something slightly more adorable when the Way's mind struck at her, trying to hammer her into submission with direct force. That was insulting, Sigaros thought. Not clever at all. She hurled her mind back in response. At the same time, she turned the world around them into cotton candy. Fluffy spider cotton candy. The Way didn't anticipate the simultaneous attack. Its physical body went toppling over, and its mind jerked away from her as it struggled to disentangle its body from the cotton candy. Sigaros took advantage of that to probe again into the thing's confused alien mind. No, not mind. Minds. There was something else there. Something that also wasn't there at all. A crouching parasite piggybacking behind the many eyes of the corrupted Way. Sigaros knew its name. The name of the lack of name. Neverwhere. Neverwhere, never was, never will be. She tried to think about what she should do, but she found she could hardly think. She was beginning to feel extremely tired. It wasn't even the corrupted Way exerting its will at her. She hadn't had to exert herself this much on purpose in forever. Allison and the others had warned her about this. They said that when it happened, she should look for her foci. They would shine like bright stars in her mental landscape. Use them as anchors, they said, so you don't get cut loose and drift away. But there was nothing there. No foci, no bright stars. Had Allison and her friends failed to set up the foci? Her mental landscape was barren. The Way's tentacles wrapped around her. Each of them had a different motion, a different tantalizing nature. Each one of them was a different path through the worlds. Each one could smother and strangle and kill. Sigaros was finding it harder and harder to care. All these visions, all these things she'd never seen, touched, tasted, and experienced. She'd thought she had it okay, drifting around and watching in an astral body, keeping her physical form asleep. She was wrong. She'd experienced nothing like the visions she was seeing now. She was walking the beaches of Zedabi, running through the jungles of Albanon, tasting the red fruit juices of the Ravel woods. She could die here, and that would be okay. Rather than live experiencing a 20th of a lifetime, she could die experiencing what most wouldn't experience in 1,000 lifetimes. But then she saw the visions she had seen before, the vision of the future, of the way never wear away, self-destructing into the hole in reality that would stay forever until the heat death of the universe. A black smirch, where there had once been a living, or where there was once a living, promising planet. Her fault. No. There was still things she needed to do here on Earth. She had never been to high school. She had never played a video game. She had never gone to a movie theater. She had never been out grocery shopping. She had never been to Disneyland. These were silly things. But sometimes the silly things mattered the most. No, not yet. She pulled herself back from the brink and drew off the way's tentacles one by one. The way never wear away resisted. It flung its mind at her again. But this time, its mind was like a world in and of itself, an overwhelming force full of emotion. She couldn't directly counter it. She envisioned its mental attack as a vast metal scorpion's tail, and barely deflected it with a conjured mirror shield. The tail soared, deflected off the mirror, and flew upwards into the sky, striking it as if it were a dome, cracking the sky down the middle. The world around them turned into barbed wire and ice. She transformed it into autumn leaves and gentle snowflakes. The world turned to blood and ash. She transformed it into strawberry jello and diamond dust. The world turned into the blackness of space. She transformed it into the cool midnight of full moons. Finally, she managed to reset things back to normal. Unfortunately, time was still running out, and to borrow a sports metaphor from games Suguro only half understood, she was only playing defense. 2 minutes left until the end of the world. I've been thinking about this a long time. Rita steadied her arms. This is about courage. Courage to do the right thing, and even when everyone else is telling you not to. Are you going to kill me, Rita? If I pick up this plant to save the world, are you going to kill me? I would if I have to, or I will if I have to, Rita said. That's what courage takes. The courage to kill your own sister. Are you even listening to yourself? Thunder rolled in the background. Flashes of light came from outside. Campbell glanced at the cameras. Most of them were down. The few left showed places like other worlds. Protean shifting. Distant views of a grudge match like the world almost never saw. Between ancient gods from the primordial world, Campbell tensed, ready to, she didn't know what. Maybe it is the courage, Cross said. Sure, the courage to do the right thing, but what the hell is the right thing here? It's about having the courage to follow the rules, Rita said, even when it's the hardest thing to do. What if the rules are wrong? The walls shook. Black ice crept across the walls, then receded. Or the windows, then receded. The area of effect of the reality bender fight was increasing rapidly. We're not wrong, Rita said, though there was a slight note of hesitance in her voice. The Foundation defends reality. We're the last line of defense between humanity and... The world could be ending right now, Cross said. Literally any fucking second. There are two reality benders fighting out there. Sigaros is trying to save the world. The other one is trying to wipe it from reality. I want to help Sigaros. That's the only reason I'm here. That's all this magical plant does, and you're making sure I can't help her. What kind of last defense of humanity is that? The two sisters stared at her. A thunderstorm raged suddenly in the corners of the room, replaced by a radiant, diffused gold light. Replaced by a rainbow array of snakes, which finally vanished altogether. Cross slumped her shoulders. I'm sorry, she said. I've never been a good sister. Not when we were young, and I hid your dolls that time, and not after that either. I'm sorry for steamrolling over you all this time, for not caring enough about your feelings. Just please, help me save the world. Even if you're right, Rita said. Even if you're right, Rita said, it doesn't matter. You don't understand the reach of the Foundation. Even if the world ended right now, they could bring it back 3 times over. You can't just leave something like this. You can't... Please, Cross said. Please, just listen. I can't, Rita said. They were all surrounded by snow and sleet for a split second, then it was gone. A flock of winged blue frogs flew overhead. Please, Cross said. You don't have to be alone anymore. Come with me. Come home. Maybe they can bring you back too, Rita said. Campbell saw the decision on Rita's face a split second before she pulled the trigger and leapt at her. She collided with Rita just as the gun went off. The world changed to water, thick water, suspended them all in slow motion for just 1 moment. In that split second, Campbell saw Cross, pulling backwards, blood ballooning outward. Without anything to anchor her, Sigaros floundered. The Neverwhere way chanted in her head. What is my name? What is your name? What is my name? What is your name? My name is Sigaros Stenfast-Dottir, she thought. It is a good name, but I might not have it much longer. She felt like she was floating at the top of a well, with deep, deep water before her. It was so easy to just let go and sink forever into the blissful abyss. She didn't let go, but she sank anyway. She felt herself becoming half real and fall asleep. 1 minute, left until the end of the world. Never, 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 never. Cross lay on the ground. Rita coughed, spat out alien water, and scrambled to her feet. Campbell was impressed to see that she'd managed to keep a hold of the gun. For a moment, Campbell and Rita just stood there, neither knowing what to do. Then Rita's eyes widened and her body went limp. She collapsed to the floor, gun clattering away from Neverless fingers. Rita looked over at Cross. She was clutching her side with one bloody hand. The other hand held a jagged piece of metal, aimed at Rita. A wand? After a moment, Cross dropped the piece of metal, picked up the strange plant, and determinedly started making hand gestures again. Abruptly, a web of light burst from the pot end of the plant and rooted itself in the floor. The red-pink blossom at the end suffused with light. The Neverwhere loosened its grip on Allison's mind, sensing Sergio's was becoming astonishingly an easier kill, and certainly more tempting. Allison forced herself into action. She pulled herself from the floor, held onto the damned focused flower stem for dear life, and, with great difficulty, performed the last 2 hand motions. She allowed herself a victorious smile as the flower bloomed before her eyes, lighting up the room. "30 seconds left until the end of the world. Sigaros had almost lost sight of the surface when she saw 2 sudden lights bloom in her mind's eye. They called to her. They called her mind back to them. Her anchors were here. With a sudden burst of metaphysical adrenaline and the pull of the foci, she forced herself through the heavy water and back into her own mind. 15 seconds left until the end of the world. She was encompassed by the tentacles of the way never way, then way never where never. She felt herself encompassed by the tentacles of the way never where way, both in the physical world and the spiritual world. Instead of panic, the position brought her a burst of clarity. She was going about this wrong. You couldn't kill a way. It was a way. And you couldn't kill an everywhere. You couldn't put something out of existence when it didn't exist in the first place. 5 seconds left until the end of the world. She felt the creature's anguish She felt the creature's anguish reach a fevered pitch in response to its contact with her mind. 0 seconds left until the end of the world. But she wasn't afraid anymore, because she knew the answer. She didn't need any more time to stop the end of the world. She couldn't kill the creature, but she could heal it. She felt the way's core begin to collapse in on itself. She felt the end of the world begin. She saw it all in her mind, the whole tearing in the middle of reality. All of Earth collapsing into a hole left in the middle of Site 17. That vision of her drifting off into space. She said, no. She reached into the forming hole in the world, into the heart of the suffering broken way, and she pulled it inside out. She pulled the Neverwhere right into it and into existence. Into essence. Into existence. Inside Site 17, the earth and sky shook for nearly a full minute. And then, all three of them, Sudurgos, the Neverwhere, and the Broken Way, disappeared into the thin air, leaving only dust and quiet behind. Campbell pulled herself off the ground once she was sure the quakes were done. The quake was done. She glanced over at Cross with a questioning look. I'm all right, Cross said. Just a flesh wound, as they say in the movies. Seal it up now. Gonna leave a nasty scar. She laughed, wincing halfway through. I can see why it had to be you. What? Rita would have shot any of my people on sight. Any of your people would have shot me before she did. Still not getting what you mean, Campbell said. The augurs said I had to approach you, Cross said. That's why I tried so hard to convert you. Why I went to you today. Not just affection. The augurs said that if you were here, I might survive, and if you weren't, I wouldn't. She looked down at her side. This bullet would have been in my head if you hadn't come. Thank you. The augurs said to approach me, Campbell said. I thought fate wasn't a real thing. No gods, no plans, right? Right, Cross chuckled. Nothing's meant to be. Just mathematical predictions and knowledge of possible futures. Just playing the odds. Turned out all right, didn't it? Cross pulled herself to her feet and walked slowly over towards Rita. She stared at her sister's face for a long moment. At her wide-open, staring eyes. Paralytic spell, Cross said. We'll wear off in a couple of hours. She'll be fine. Well, physically fine. She reached down and carefully closed both of her sister's eyelids. Campbell said, They're gonna establish security pretty quickly now that the reality benders are gone. You have to get out of here. What about you? Cross asked. What? Cross pressed an object into her hand. Campbell looked at it. A small green card with a tiny moving holographic arrow dancing on the surface. It's a temporary library card, Cross said. Site 17's east gate is breached. That thing blew a hole in it, and when it broke out, there's a way in the forest outside. I'm a Foundation member, Campbell said. The library won't let us use ways to enter it. The Foundation members could try to enter the library, but the library just rerouted them to very unpleasant places. Even if I use the way, security will just follow me. It's a very special way, Cross said. Ellis commissioned it from the library as a reward. It's impossible for Foundation members to physically enter, except you, because you'll have this card. But you... I have my own paths out, Cross said. I can only take them alone, so you have to go alone too. The arrow on the card will guide you. You'll see a crook between two trees with a bit of blue spray paint on it. The way will automatically open for you. Campbell felt troubled. Listen, Cross said, this will probably be your only chance. If you're ever willing to take a leap of faith, now's the time to leap. Cross held Campbell's gaze for a long second, then, surprisingly, without more words, turned and hobbled off for the opposite door. Campbell stood still for a moment longer. Then she made her decision and headed for the east gate. Allison took the scenic route out of Site 17's personal office building. It took her about 20 dangerous minutes, during which Site 17 inched closer and closer to sealing their numerous security breaches. But it was well worth the effort, she thought. When she finally found the right office, the office with the name plaque reading simply Dr. Gears. She had expected the office to be empty. It was not. Allison held her father's gaze for a long moment before either of them spoke. Allison Cho, he said. His voice betrayed no emotion. Yes. Neither of them said anything for a long moment. Temporary office, right? Allison said. Yes, Gears said. I was assigned here in anticipation of dealing with a security breach. Your security breach, I assume? I'm on my way out, Allison said. Unless you have a method by which you are able to detain me. I do not, Gears said. Allison held out a long-stemmed black flower, an offering. It's an anise rose, Allison said. Doesn't exist in this particular universe. Should give you some good data. You should take it. After a moment, Gears took it. Don't lose it, Allison said. It's extremely expensive. Gears contemplated the flower for a moment in silence. Goodbye, Dr. Gears, Allison said. Goodbye, Allison Cho, Gears said. Campbell stumbled through the woods east of Site 17, following the tiny arrow on the card. She hadn't even known that there were woods there, not until today. She'd only ever seen the outside of the front gate, surrounded by concrete and iron. And then, only for the few seconds she'd been bustled out or in during her arrivals or departures. She felt dizzy, insane. She still only half believed what she was doing, or she only half believed she was doing what she was doing. Defecting. She wasn't as in shape as she could be. Her limbs screamed in... Yeah, I'm not going to be able to read more than this one. Her limbs screamed at her in protest, telling her to stop running. At this point, fear was driving her more than anything else. Maybe it's not too late, she thought, but no. She had seen the Serpent's hand save the world. How could she go back to the Foundation now? A little map showed her the entrance to the way just ahead. It did not show her the sudden steep slope before it. Campbell went tumbling. She managed to catch herself halfway down the slope. She picked up the dropped library card. It was bent. She unbent it. There was a crease through it now. That was worrying. Campbell made the rest of her way down the slope more carefully. Covered in muds and sticks. Now she properly looked the part. She thought, inanely, fugitive from the man. She reached the bottom of the slope and found the trees with the blue spray paint. She stood in front of them expectantly, feeling a little foolish. Nothing happened. She got up closer to the tree. Feeling a little foolish, she put her hand on the faded spray paint, then both hands, then waited some more. Still nothing happened. She pulled the library card out of her pocket, waved it in the air up and down, around and around, feeling sillier by the minute. She examined at the library card. The little arrow had disappeared, which wasn't surprising. The crease looked the same. She flipped the card over. Little holographic letters had appeared on the back of the card in tiny, small print. Your library card is damaged and cannot be read. Please return to the library for replacement. Thank you for your patronage. Campbell laughed. Then she laughed again and kept laughing. She turned around, sank to the ground, her back to the blue spray-painted trees, still laughing. Jesus, she said aloud. After that, just nothing. Shame. A voice said from amongst the tree trunks. A man stepped out of the shadows. John Peters, MTF Town 9, local section leader. Was really hoping that would work out, Peters said, for your sake. Campbell's just stared. Well, Peters asked. Nothing to say for yourself? You knew I'd defect, Campbell said. Peters chuckled. I give you credit for not trying to hide it. Like I always tell people, it's about courage. Shame it's coming from you. How long did you know? Peters glanced to the side for a moment. We knew Cross would target you from the moment she showed up. We knew it was never going to be poor Rita. Oh? Unfortunately, we didn't know why she was targeting you. Hell, we still don't. We tried a whole lot of junk that didn't work. Remember those questionnaire lists? That was supposed to introduce some kind of mimetic trigger. I think. Didn't work too well. Or at all. Mimetics are fucky bullshit. Campbell found herself wishing she had a drink. If she was about to die anyway, might as well be dead drunk. Accidental pun. Since we had to throw you the lines anyway, Peter said. I just hoped you wouldn't fall for all that shit. What's to fall for? Campbell said. Looked to me like the Serpent's hand literally saved the world. It was pretty convincing. Oh, come on, Campbell, Peter said. The world ain't so fragile that it needs some snake-worshipping nutjobs to save its ass every fucking Tuesday. I grant you, if they hadn't been there, or I guarantee you that if they hadn't been there, we'd be just fine. The Foundation always figures a way out. That's why we're still here. Weak anthropic principle, Campbell said. Conditions that are observed in the universe must allow the observer to exist. Peters laughed. Man, that Cross girl, she really did a number on you, didn't she? I guess so, Campbell said. How come it's just you here? There was a whole MTF stationed here, but then the breach happened. See, I wasn't even here, but I got to thinking. If I were to gun a defect, when would I do it? And you knew they'd let me into the library. Yeah, we had a plan to piggyback. At least get a bug on you. Set up a eventual entrance. Peters shrugged. It's all garbage now, of course, for old time's sake. I'm gonna do a favor of not taking you back to site. You ain't got any anomalous protections, and I really hate torturing old friends. Peter raised his gun, aimed it at her head. Any last words you want me to pass on? Yeah, Campbell said. Yeah, I do. I have a confession to make. Peters raised an eyebrow. And that is? I think the Foundation can go straight to hell, Campbell said. She flipped him off with both her middle fingers. Nothing personal, just asking you to pass it on. Peters chuckled. I think there are worse last words, he said. He pulled the trigger. Campbell waited, watched the gun fire. Campbell waited, watched the gunfire. Strange. The gunshots seemed to be happening in slow motion. The whole world had slowed to a crawl. This was what it was like to die, she wondered. Kinda cool, I guess, all things considered. And then she noticed the light glimmering behind her. The light of the way opening. She turned. Beyond the way's light, she could see tables, books, stacks and stacks of books, books lined up to high heaven. The way was opening for her, saving her. And Kendra Campbell realized that she was no longer a member of the SCP Foundation. Okay, she thought to herself, guess it's not time to die yet. She walked through the way and into the library. The way closed behind her. Back in the forest, the bullet carved out a path in the crooked trees, ricocheting across trunks before harmlessly burying itself in a pile of mud some distance away. Well, Peter said to the empty forest. All right then. Allison reached the hand safe house 30 minutes behind schedule. She walked in on Joanna Cross, having her torso wrapped in bandages by an annoyed-looking Septima. You're late, Cross said. Who shot you? Allison asked. Dr. Campbell? Nope. She saved my life, actually. Cross winced as Septima wrapped another bandage a little too tight. My sister shot me. Rita. Shit, Allison said. I'm sorry. I told her to go help you. Thought you might have, Cross said. Don't worry about it. There's still a chance, she did fail to kill me, so there's that. Not giving up on her, huh? Not any sooner than you're giving up on your dad, Cross smiled, or Cross half smiled. Fair, Allison said. What happened to Campbell? She made it to the library, Cross said. We'll head over there in a bit. Give her a welcome party when I'm, less horribly in pain. What did you do with the witch child? Allison smiled. Rita Butler awoke in the medical ward. The paralysis was still taking its time to wear off, but she managed to prop herself up and look around. The ward was swarming with activity. She had been relegated to a corner stretcher, probably because the doctors didn't know what was actually wrong with her. The Foundation didn't deal in magic after all, not at this clearance level. She called out, she thought, with enough effort, but she wasn't sure what the point of calling out was. A woman walked by with an open, friendly face that Rita recognized from Town 9. She briefly debated calling out for her, just for the company, but she couldn't remember the name. Adele? Lily? Jill? And it didn't matter anyway. The woman was heading for another bed, enthusiastically grabbing the hand of another woman laying there. Rita wondered if her sister had survived. She remembered those last words moments before the final decision to pull the trigger. No. There was no final decision. It was always going to pan out that way. That was how things had to have gone. She was sure that Joanna knew that deep down, too. Acceptance is its own kind of courage, she told herself. It felt hollow. Rita Butler lay there long into the night, on a stretcher in the corner. In a maternity ward not so far away from Site-17, in the world of the mundane, a newborn baby took its first breath of air. The quickening. The moment when, metaphysically speaking, the soul enters the body. The baby had matted black hair and bright brown eyes. It had red baby gums and pliable baby fingers, and soft baby skin. It had cartilage and tendons and bones and blood and a mind. It was real. It existed. It was happy. Epilogue. I have to admit, Allison Cho said, surveying the crowd below, I didn't expect that outcome. Next to her, Sigaros Stenfans Dottir kicked her feet. I couldn't kill it. I had to make it real. You realize that's never been done before, right? Allison asked. The Neverwhere can't be truly real. That's their defining factor. It just breaks the laws of the universe to say otherwise. Maybe the problem's with the laws of the universe, then, Siguro said. Allison laughed. You're entirely too precocious for your own good, you know that? Maybe one day soon you'll be a god asking me to bring burnt offerings to an altar. Sigros frowned. No, she said. I'm not going to become a god. I'm just me. Maybe so, Allison said. Not a god, not a demon, a witch girl. I approve of that. You know, that reminds me. Septima wrote you some poetry. She did? Sigurdo's mouth formed a perfect O. That little kid wasn't really too adorable for her own good sometimes. Tell me. The witch child and her children stood on the jailer's ground, Allison began. There to fight the enemy, the Neverwhere. For the witch child is the only thing that could prevent the unmade from unmaking. And lo, did Sigurd make the Neverwhere made. And lo, did they become defined and real. Their torments as half-truths and ephemera ended. For the only thing that can end the torture of its half-existence is existence. By Septima Varen, the High Enchantress and ever-faithful follower of the woman with stars in her eyes. The last part still means you. Septima seems very insistent on that particular title. Sigurd smiled and clapped her hands. It was only one Neverwhere, though. Artistic license, Allison said. You know, you really could be quite the god if you wanted to be. Nope, Sigurd said. So, you're sure you want to go back to the Foundation after all this? Allison said. Go back to your half-real coma. Yes, Sigurd said. I have unfinished business. Not ready to leave yet. I have friends there. Friends? Yep. Suit yourself, Allison said. Let me know if you change your mind. Okay. So, Allison continued, we made a bargain, didn't we? You performed me a service, I need to perform you a service. That's the rules of magical bargains. Even exchange. Makes the whole universe balance out. And I am told that I am a woman who makes good on her bargains. Sigros wore a huge grin. Allison looked down from their perch atop the entryway entrance to Disneyland. Which ride would you like to go on first? I always wanted to see the Pirates of the Caribbean, Sigurd said. That one's cool, Allison said. Jungle Cruise is better. That's the one with rainforest animals, right? Yep. Only if you let me turn all the animals real for a minute. No, definitely not. Just for a second, promise. Fine, Allison said. But only for a second, no further. Deal? Deal, Sigurd said. All right, Allison stood up. Let's go to Disneyland. And so they did. And that is the end of Prologues of the Serpent's Hand. Prisoners, family, Showtime, and sisters. Thank you everyone who would come, especially Nuki, Ashley, and Chan. And good to know that you're having a good day. Thank you again, everyone who has come. If you're on Twitch and you haven't already, I encourage a follow if you enjoyed the content. I play games and just read SCP articles. Those are my 2 types of streams so far. I believe I'm here Tuesdays and Thursdays reading the Resurrection... Not on Twitch. On Twitch, I'm here whatever day it ends up being, usually the day before. But for those of you on YouTube, I'm here Tuesdays and Thursdays with Resurrection Canon so far. On Saturdays and Sundays with regular SCP articles. And all other days, until I'm in school, I read off. My brain's actually dying. 2.5 hours is a little too long. Literally 2.5 hours now. Hey, it's a little too long for reading normally. But All other days, I'm here playing games. So yeah, and if you liked on YouTube, I encourage a like, and if you want to hear more, subscribe. And otherwise, I hope to see you all in the future. And Nukiashi, I finally understand both of those. I know who Rose is now, and I have finally understood Tricky Wave. So I do, in fact, understand the little emotes now. There we go. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and I hope to see you in the future. Au revoir and goodbye.